Here I'm going to be doing a series of the Queen versus Rook endgame, which is one of the most complicated endgames for the attacker. And the main problem is if you get a situation where you can fork a rook, that's great, but you have 50 moves to do it. And there's a course from a YouTube channel online called Derek Grimmel's course on Queen versus Rook endgame. And here I'm putting in the second position as a practice position. And I'm going to attempt to checkmate black before 50 moves or win the rook here. And see if I can bring this position into a recognizable pattern where I know the technique how to win. So I start off as white here and I'm in check. So I'm going to move my king up. Okay, and then Chessmaster moves the rook here. Now, a lot of people may be tempted to move the queen over here to g6 to completely trap in the black king, but that's not a good idea, because then the rook can just check, 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 and even sacrifice itself, and then there's a stalemate. But I am going to move here and attack the rook. I don't know if that's completely the correct move, but I think, the queen in the center or close to the center doing something can give. So now I'm going to check over here and maybe let me check over here. I think I can create some type of cage. Let's take a look at this. Yeah, this is a position known as the wishbone. Usually if there was more space on the board, I'd go there, but I think in this case, let's go over here, check. King goes there. Now, it never hurts to move the queen back into a central position like this, where it can control the diagonal, and plus I can advance my king. Okay, he's going that way now. The problem, if the rook went over here, it's kind of separate, then there's possibility of forks. But the rook went here, and now I don't see any reason why I cannot advance the king, because this square here is protected. So let's advance the king one. And the rook decides to move over here. Now it looks like he's want to maintain what's called a third rank defense. And the key is I'm first going to try to check over here to get the king to move backwards. And now you want the queen to control those two central positions and hopefully get into a position where the third rank defense can be broken. So I'm going to move the queen over here. And black decides to move the rook. Now, if he moved over here, he could have tried a harassment defense, but now the correct move is to chase the rook with the king. And now I got this into a position that is one of the key positions that is taught in the course, and it's called breaking the third rank defense. The queen is over here guarding the two squares. The rook, the correct move for the defender here would be to always stay on a square opposite color of the king. Now, if the king keeps on chasing, it can just be a back and forth thing. But now I'm going to make the key move for the queen is to break the third rank defense, and it's this move over here. And black makes the main move. There are another move possibilities over here, and there's a technique to break this down, but this is now well rehearsed. Check over here. Check over here. Check over here. And now bring down the king. And Chessmaster decides to move the rook over here, and now I'm going to try to create a position known as the diagonal position. Because a lot of people are wondering, there is a key position in this endgame known as the Philidor position, and you can learn how to bust that completely. But the problem is getting there. And that's one of the two techniques is you're either going to get force black into the Philidor position or force a position where you fork the rook. But I'm going to force the Philidor position through another position known as a diagonal position. And that's a simple move, just right over here, setting up a discovered check. And Chessmaster does make the strongest move, which is to cover the discovered check. And other moves, are a lot worse. But I want this position to be where it's black to move, so I'm going to just do a waiting move with the queen. Move it over here. Now let's put the king in check, and let's get back to the diagonal position, but now it's black to move. Now I do the discovered check. King goes over here, and now I set up the Philidor position by doing this, check. And what do you do now? Boom, queen to a5, Philidor position. And now this is lost for black. Black is forced to move the rook, and wherever the rook, there are no king moves without immediate defeat, and every rook move will lead to its loss. And black does the typical computer move, and the way to break this is quite easily. First you go over here, set up a check, then check here. Always check within, key is to check next to the diagonal where the rook is standing, so I check again over here. King is forced there. Now comes the fork, check here, and now the rook is gone, forked. Check there, rook falls, and checkmate. So I solved this position in 28, I checkmated in 28 moves. So, and that's the main thing with the queen and rook is black can be very tricky, and it's even happened in grandmaster play where the 50 move rule was reached and it was a draw. But the key is pattern recognition, and in this example here I was able to get it to the typical third rank defense, and knowing how to break it down is what finally led to the checkmate. I'm going to do some more problems, but if you do want to really learn this endgame, I do recommend that you check out Derek Grimmel's videos on YouTube. But the most important thing is if you download his Queen versus Rook course, and it's excellent study material, and you'll be able to know how to do these and master this endgame pretty quickly. All right, and thank you very much for watching.